Oh, what's the best game where you get to eat pie? What's the best game where you play a dead guy? Aye, you'll find out in VG247's podcast. Here, what's the best game where you swing from a rope? And what's the best game where you batter the Pope? Assassin's Creed 2. Like I said, you will find out in this here podcast. Hello and welcome to VG247's Best Games Ever podcast, the show where we like to find the best game within a really specific category that we've made up to cause arguments for your entertainment. This week we're looking for the best Star Wars game that isn't a Star Wars game. So a game that evokes Star Wars, perhaps the themes of Star Wars, the look of Star Wars, things about Star Wars, but it's not a licensed Star Wars game, and that's the crucial point. Joining me today, I have Connor Macker, Mark Warren, and also subbing in for Tom Ori because he's on holiday, a grumpy man of sort of similar, I mean, you even look a bit like a stretched Tom at the moment, I have to say. I don't know if it's the angle of the webcam, but Ian Dransfield.
Yeah, I take that as a massive insult. Good way to start, Jim, thank you.
Tom's an attractive man.
He's alright.
No. What you're saying is you're saying Tom looks like me, and it's an insult to Tom. That's what I mean.
All right, okay, fair enough. For those of you who don't know, Ian is, well, you've been in games media off and on forever, and almost got Steve Burns' job at Video Gamer, but didn't. And
yeah, see, this is my first issue with this podcast, is that Tom isn't here, and I assume it's out of fear.
Yeah,
because he gave that job to Steve Burns about 11 or 12 years ago, and not to me.
Yeah.
And the only reason I wanted to do this podcast is to confront him about it. You know, drama for the clicks and the engagement, but he's a coward.
Well, we'll have to get you back on when Tom is here, but he has, when I said that you were going to be on the podcast, you know what he said, Ian? He said, I told you, we have to get guests that people actually know. Can't just get your mates on. I was like, I don't know anyone apart from my mates. That's the problem, right? Anyway, so the best Star Wars game that isn't a Star Wars game. I went to a Roman museum in Caerleon in Wales over the bank holiday weekend, right? And they had a bunch of cool things in the gift shop there, and I'm a sucker for Rome shit, so I bought a fake Sesterces, which is incredibly fake, but it's a nice coin with a nice heft to it, so I've just now got it on my desk like a sort of shit kind of classically obsessed Harvey Dent. And I also bought, which is incredible, right, a pencil modeled on the sponge on a stick that the Romans used to wipe their bums with. Now I want to explain this, right? So, and I can't believe this exists as a sort of nice little gift. Who's going to know what this is unless you know, right?
Right, yeah.
So it was £2.50, and I love it because this obviously would have been bigger than this. In ancient Rome, you generally, unless you were a very rich person, you rented accommodation, and that accommodation was literally just a room that you could sleep in. It had no kitchen, it had no facilities, it had no running water, because you did all that stuff outside. They were very much what we would describe nowadays as a cafe culture, but it wasn't that glamorous. They just didn't have the means to look at themselves in their own flats. All that stuff was done outside, and it was a good thing because these places tended to burn down if anyone did try to cook in them. So all the toilets generally, unless you were a very rich person, were public toilets, and how you wiped your ass in those days was there was one of these in a bucket of stagnant water that, if you were lucky, was changed once a day. And you'd just be wiping your ass with that along with every other guy that had been in there that day. So it was a communal ass stick.
Yeah. It's good.
I have genuinely been listening to this podcast since you started, and this is a pivot I didn't expect, but I'll go with it.
But this is not the empire that we're talking about today, because we're talking about Star Wars. And I think given what Star Wars is inspired by in the real world, you know, the Nazis, the Vietnam War, all that kind of stuff, It's not political, obviously, but I think there's a lot of scope here for games that are Star Wars-ish, but don't actually have licensed Star Wars elements in them. So let's explore that. I think I want to first of all hear from Mark, right? And the reason for that is partly because I've not spoken to you for a week, Mark, and I miss you. But it's also because you've not told me what you've picked yet, and I want to give ourselves time to pivot if you've managed to pick something someone else has. So,
all right. As opposed to just having picked something so terrible that you won't want to include it in the episode. Which,
I mean,
those are the two bars that I'm going to try.
That's
and
my
hit.
pick, so we got that coming up. So,
we have, Donaldson's gone off on one about Galgun on this podcast, and we didn't catch it. So, anything goes. I don't think you can get any lower than that.
Right. Anyway, so my pick is it's my usual. It's as last week. It's pretentious indie shite. We're going with the Cosmic Wheel Sisterhood, because Star Wars at its heart is all about fate. Luke, born with the Force, fate that he's gonna rise up and lead the rebels and defeat the Empire and all of that bollocks. And the Cosmic Wheel Sisterhood is a game that's all about fate. You're taken away from your family to become a witch who lives in a small room in space. Star Wars is set in space, more points there. And basically you sit in this small room talking to your friends who are witches, who are basically Jedi but with better fashion sense. They've all got different powers, which are more interesting than just having different coloured lightsabers, although that is pretty cool. Mace Windu had a purple one, none of us expected that. Good point. The entire game you spend basically doing the Jedi mind trick by reading people their fates and making them think different things of you based on what you've read, which is essentially just the bit from A New Hope where Alec Guinness walks up to the stormtroopers and goes, "These aren't the droids you're looking for," and I've read it, and he has a card that has some weird art that I've made that's semi-lewd that says this too. And then the second half of the game, because it starts off as just you having chats and reading people's fortunes while some vaguely emotional things go on in the background, as happens in a lot of video games. And then midway through, it turns into a political sim where you're running for the head of the witch coven that you're part of. Either you're trying to get yourself in power or you're trying to get somebody else in power, and it's essentially just all the bits from the prequels about the Senate. There's people that you've got to convince. They come by to your house as if they're on those weird little sort of platformy pod things that they have at the Senate, that they have that nice big fight on in one of the movies. I've forgotten which one.
Yeah.
And it's basically just about meeting a bunch of different people that might as well be alien races, because some of them have weird stuff on their heads and that kind of thing, which is how you know what an alien is.
The Star Trek aliens with stuff glued to their faces,
and you've got to convince them that they've all got their own little obsessions, which are essentially the version of, people from Naboo caring about trees and that kind of thing, and you've got to convince them that you've got their best interests at heart by doing your little Jedi mind trick and going, actually you're gonna die in 3 minutes, so just vote for me anyway.
Yeah, okay. This is very left field, but that's a very convincing take. That's a very convincing argument. I never thought about it like that. And of course, like witches / wizards, I'm going to lump them both together for the purposes of this. Yeah, essentially Jedi. Even though there are witches in the Star Wars universe that are distinct Force users who are distinct from Jedi wizards, I'm going to allow it, Mark, because I'm nice.
Thank you. We're pretending that all of the weird books that people have written about it just don't exist.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
They basically don't. They took them out of the canon, right? They just kind of said, "Nah, ignore that." Films and TV shows. So it works.
Look, the witch. I can't remember what they're called now. Sisters of whatever the fuck.
Exactly.
They're in the Clone Wars cartoon. It's canon. It's on screen, right?
Yeah.
So in that sense, Mark is actually barking completely up the wrong tree on that specific point. But because that's inconvenient for his argument, I'm going to ignore it. All right, okay. Let's should we save Ian for last?
Yeah, the guest. We should save the guest for last. 100%.
Save the guest for last. Fuck's sake. Was that deliberate, Connor?
No.
All right. Okay.
Well, I genuinely don't know. Did I do a funny? Oh God.
Yeah. Okay. Except you don't even know you did a funny because you're too young to remember that song.
Kind.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just when I thought my chance had passed. All right, Connor, you do your fucking pick. Let's get on it. Come on.
Brilliant. Yeah. So I don't know what you're talking about. I don't think everyone's like, oh man, Star Wars is about fate and like, you know, and fighting against fascist regimes, and maybe it used to be that, you know, back in the day. But these days, it's Disney, baby. It's all about lightsabers and lightsaber fights and cool action and space and aliens, really. That's kind of what people want. That's kind of the whole deal. Just going to point out,
you know, even though it might scupper your argument slightly, Connor, that those things have always been in it.
Yeah, but like those are now those are the best things now. And that's what people really care about, other than that other stuff. Like space politics or whatever. Okay. Which is why when I think of, you know, laser swords, you know, lightsabers and cool fights, I think of No More Heroes 3, you know. I think of Travis Touchdown with his laser sword, you know, fighting people. And No More Heroes 3 is especially good because he's fighting aliens, which is, you know, kind of sick. And, you know, if you want to get a bit deeper, you know, if you want to look into this sort of media IP, mega corporate sort of stuff, you could be like, well, I guess it's also about, you know, found family, you know, about these weird, lovable whatevers you find in space. And Travis has, you know, all sorts of found family, whose names currently escape me, but they are there and they help him out.
He's like got Sylvie. That toilet that you can use. He's got a
toilet that you can use. Yeah, he does. Bad girl, who's the daughter of with the stick. Bad girl is the daughter of the guy you kill in No More Heroes 1, Henry Cooldown. He's Irish and he's great. He's awesome. And he has a lightsaber as well, a laser sword as well.
Right. Okay.
It looks different to the laser sword Travis has, and it has the crossguard on it, like in the new films. So, you know, it's basically the same thing. And it's all about, you know, laser sword fights in space and, you know, becoming really strong and stuff. So, which I think is actually what Star Wars is about.
This sounds like almost a direct sort of riff on Star Wars on the game maker's part.
I think I might be wrong on this. So if I am, please email jim@vg247.com and correct me. I think because in No More Heroes 3 you have discussions, like film discussions, with some guy in like loading screens between sections of the game. Yeah, and I think Star Wars comes up.
Yeah.
I even think the start of each chapter has like an intro sort of painting sort of opening, and it may even be a reference to Star Wars. Genuinely, it might be. There's lots of stuff there, and you know, I think it's the perfect Star Wars game that isn't a Star Wars game because it really gets to the heart of what the entire thing is about.
Yeah,
I mean, the dude's got a laser sword, so there's definitely Star Wars involved in it.
100%.
I would argue, though, that dismissing things like fate as being saying they're not a part of the modern Disney Star Wars, I'd completely disagree because the last 3 films were all focused on that.
Well,
as in the most recent films were all focused on that, including the absolutely appalling last one where it was like, your fate, your destiny is, we're all related, we're all inbred.
It's like the worst bits of the new Star Wars, which is why, you know, who cares?
Okay. Right, okay. Connor has once again left me thoroughly confused, but I'm just going to take it as No More Heroes 3 has laser swords in it, and that's essentially what Connor's argument is.
And you go for a shit to save the game.
I didn't even bring that up, but it's true.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's not really a Star Wars thing, is it?
It's also got like massive family stuff because like Travis's grandkids become like, you know, big things in the story.
Toilets are a part of Star Wars now.
So we're saying his grandkids are they get laser swords and stuff, so their fate is that they become like Travis.
Well, they didn't have to. They could have done anything, really.
But I mean, that would probably help make it more Star Warsy if fate does come into it.
Well, I mean,
I'm trying to help you here.
No,
I don't know how the game works.
No, I think like you can interpret it how you like. I'm purely saying that when it comes to Star Wars, the most important thing that makes a Star Wars game or anything is laser swords. This game has them.
I want to point out that Star Wars Outlaws, which inspired this topic, obviously, and I reviewed it on VG247.com. It's a very well written review. You should check it out. If I say so myself, it has toilets in it, right?
Right.
There's public toilets. There's a toilet on your ship, and the toilets in Star Wars, they've designed them so it looks like it's a standard type of toilet that various different species can use if they need to. So it reflects the possibly different toilet needs of different types of bodies, etc. So there's the usual seat that you crap into, but it's at a slant, right? So maybe that, maybe Twi'leks need gravity to kick in or something. So there's more of a squatty thing going on.
When you say a slant, do you mean like a bus stop seat?
It's like that. Yeah, so you can't relax on the can, but it's like everyone's got to make a compromise. Well, what if you need a crap and you're a Twi'lek and I don't know why I'm fixated on Twi'leks crapping, but what if you've got big head tentacles and you need some sort of seat that accommodates for your
like a shelf.
Exactly. Yeah.
How do you know that they sit down to shit?
Exactly. You're making some
there's
assumptions
also
there.
a funnel. There's like a funnel thing that you can use.
Do they shit from their tentacles?
There's like a funnel where I'm guessing that
when you're decorating a cake,
you can kind of
like an icing bag.
Listen, there's like. There's like a funnel, like how Hoovers have like a detachment and you can take the hose and get in. The toilets have kind of that, so you can imagine that maybe some species like poo out of their knees or something, and they need to get the wee funnel out.
It seems like a nightmare because there are like a million different alien species in Star Wars.
This is it.
It's like the galaxy.
You've got to have the toilet. Basically, I think what it says something. I think it is saying something about the Star Wars universe in the sense that, in order to accommodate for everyone in Star Wars, it actually accommodates for nobody. It's just a bad toilet for everyone as opposed to a good toilet for some people. And maybe that's, I don't know, maybe it's making a very problematic point. I don't know.
About gatekeeping public restrooms from certain races of aliens.
It could be interpreted wildly in either direction.
Does it at least come with a bidet?
Not that I could see, no.
No,
I think
they're really being stiff there.
Yeah, not even a sponge on a stick, actually.
No.
Appalling.
So if it wasn't, if discarding germ theory, right, I think that proves
germ theory,
right, that obviously the Romans didn't know anything about germs, but
that's why they all died from arson.
Exactly.
If you're purely talking about holding up to a visual inspection, the standard of Roman bum hygiene was better than most British people, wasn't it?
No.
It was, because most British people just wipe it with dry toilet paper that doesn't clean anything. At least they were using water.
It was shitty water.
Like some moisture is better than no fucking moisture. Like
I think there's a line, and I think
if you got shit on your bare hands, right? Would you just take a dry piece of paper and go, that'll do? That's clean now. No,
but we also wash our hands after that. And that's your point, I guess, is that the moisture.
Exactly. You need to wash.
That's why you have wet wipes in your
British people
bathroom,
don't wash their asses enough, is my point.
You got wet wipes in your bathroom.
Yeah, but I mean, we need to establish a proper bidet culture in this country, because it's frankly getting beyond a joke. Ian,
and this is where it begins.
Right here.
Us right here. This is the starting point of something great.
Right now.
Yeah, that's what Star Wars should be focusing on.
Yeah.
Ian,
when they had all the political bollocks in it instead of trade embargoes and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
It should have been them trying to get B-days on the Death Star.
Ian Dransfield, what is
Hello.
your pick for the best Star Wars game that is not a Star Wars game?
So, as I showed you before this all kicked off, I had a long list of choices to go through, and I had all manner of different games and different reasons for why I might choose them. Yeah. Lots of mental gymnastics going on why I might go for, say, Stardew Valley or an Acronox, or a more obvious choice like something like Guardians of the Galaxy. Maybe I'd go for a personal favourite, Red Faction Guerrilla. Maybe I would even, because I am effectively Tom Ori right now, go down the route of justifying and being hilarious every single word I say and going with Football Manager. But I'm not doing that. I've actually gone for a relatively, an actual serious choice on my part, which hurts my soul because I want to take the piss, but I won't.
Fairly out of character for you, I have to say.
I know, yeah. I normally do nothing but take the piss. Here we go. So yeah, Star Wars is about a hell of a lot of different things, so you can cherry pick what you want from it to be a game that is not Star Wars. If you got everything from Star Wars and put it in a game, it would be a Star Wars game. There are no other games that have everything from it. Not even Mass Effect, which would be probably the obvious choice, because that doesn't have laser swords, that doesn't have lightsabers, has practically everything else. Pretty much was a Star Wars game until it wasn't.
More a Babylon 5 game than a Star Wars game, I reckon, but...
Well, yeah, I guess. Oh, let's talk about how good Babylon 5 is.
Yeah.
Because then we can gang up on Connor.
Yeah.
No.
But no, the thing that I've chosen to kind of settle on as the Star Warsy thing that makes this game Star Warsy is the concept of a side in a conflict that is on its last legs, in the darkest point of the conflict, on the verge of total defeat, and it has a mission that is to rush away from enemy forces and try and deliver something to their own people to help their side win this conflict. That is something that is very key to the beginning of Star Wars Episode 4, as it were. And that's FTL, Faster Than Light. So FTL, Faster Than Light, I'll just call it FTL, is basically a game where you're playing as I think it's the blockade runner from Episode 4, trying to deliver Death Star plans. It's not literally that, because it's not a Star Wars game. You are a member of the Federation, not the Rebels. The Rebels are the bad guys in this, but you're a member of the Federation. You've got some plans, some information or something, and you are racing from one side of the galaxy to the other to deliver them to the Federation home base. It will give the Federation the intel that they need to be able to turn the tide of this war that they're losing and beat the rebellion and destroy them and win, and the established order will be preserved, which is obviously what we all want from a Star Wars film, for the established order to be preserved and for the Empire to win. And I mean, the game itself it's a not turn-based, it's real-time. You can just pause it while you're playing. So I think of it as turn-based. It's a real-time space combat roguelike thingamabob where you are pootling through the stars, encountering lots of different ships, hostile and otherwise, and lots of different alien races, and generally just making your way through a universe that it feels lived in. It feels like something that was established before you were anywhere near it. And that is another thing that is a big aspect of Star Wars to me as I read it. Along the way, you're picking up different crew members who are different alien races and so on, things like that. During your space combat, for example, your ship is divided into its separate parts. You know, so you've got your weapons, you've got your shields, you've got your engines, etc., etc. And these different parts can be destroyed and knocked out of service. So, like in Star Wars, when you get a giant woolly man to repair your hyperdrive, who stands on top of it going, because he's an accomplished mechanic. I'm sure they evolved to be like that. I don't know.
Yeah,
Wookiees. Instead of getting a giant woolly man, you can get a giant rock man. Yeah. To repair your engines, your shield. You can get a giant slug to do it. You can get a big mantis person to do it. You can get a boring human to do it if you want. Yeah. But yeah, it's got a lot of general sci-fi. It's got a lot of Star Trek about it. But to me, it's a very Star Warsy game in that it is a pitched battle between a rebellion and an established order. It is a race to get some information from one to the other to avoid total destruction.
Yeah.
It is desperate, dark times, verge of total defeat, a last gasp effort, and oh shit, no, there are no laser swords in it.
And as you pointed
heavy
out,
on space battles as well. Yeah,
as you pointed out, everything's covered in shit. Like everything is grimy. It
feels like a place that absolutely exists, and that's one of the things where you turn it on for the first time, you start playing it, and it's just like it's on you. It's all encompassing, the atmosphere of it. It's absolutely superb. It's such a great game.
It doesn't
It is brilliant. Yeah.
It doesn't really bring you up to speed either, because it's just
it literally drops you off and says, "This is the situation. Go."
Yeah.
And you're just going.
Yeah.
In one direction.
It's incredible. It's such a good game. I thought of it primarily as like a Star Trek game.
You would.
Because, as you pointed out, you got people on different stations and stuff, and I like to call, I like to name one guy Riker and one guy Data and one guy Worf, and assign them appropriate roles. But and
just give them very rude names.
Yeah.
Yeah. What, like Pooh, Ian?
Yeah, like Fluffy Bum White. And he's the one I stand in the airlock and just open the doors. Everybody talks about The Sims and removing the stairs from the swimming pool in the original Sims.
Yeah.
FTL's much better for that.
Yeah.
You just stand them in a room, you open the airlock, you let all the oxygen out, and they die.
Yeah.
That is like the most amazing sort of bit of like managing like ship combat, right? Is when you're getting boarded and you just need to lock all the doors and just drain all the oxygen out. It's great. FTL is fantastic.
It's a bloody great game.
Yeah, Connor's raging now because he's like, "Oh, FTL's really good."
I'm not raging. It's always nice to hear about a good game that I've not thought about in like 5 years, admittedly.
Yeah.
I need to go back and play it now. That's how good it is.
I reviewed that a long time ago. It was the very first Tamagotchi video I did.
Jesus.
What do you think of that?
It's a 12-year-old game. So.
Oh God, no, it isn't.
Yeah.
Surely not.
I think you
came
would have been
out
like
12.
6 when that came out.
Oh,
Yeah, I think it came out
12,
2012. So.
I was 14.
Because it was one of the early Kickstarter successes.
Yeah, it was.
That you could say kickstarted the whole thing of putting games on Kickstarter. But it was actually a good game that came out. So
As opposed to
Star Citizen, as opposed to Star Citizen,
or as opposed to the Tim Schafer one that came out and was kind of.
Which one was that?
Broken Age. Yeah.
It was fine.
A lot of rubbish.
But
Okay.
No laser swords. So
No laser swords. I did realise as I was saying it there, and nowhere in my list have I got any excuse for that. There are just no lasers. There are lasers.
Yeah.
There are lasers.
There's people blasting doors, which happens a fair bit in Star Wars.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
It's real close.
Yeah. So, I need to pick something now. So, I'm going to go and do that after this jingle. Right. So, I like everyone's pick again. The one I like least is No More Heroes 3.
Right.
Because I'm just going to knock you out straight away, Connor. I know you love that.
Because I mumbled for like 5 minutes about nothing. Like laser swords.
No. It's purely because, you need to find reasons to eliminate things. It's purely because this, it's so kind of over that this is a lightsaber man doing lightsaber fights. It's very on the nose, and for that reason I'm gonna eliminate it straight away.
So the game that is very unsubtly very Star Wars related has been eliminated from the best game that is like Star Wars.
It's too
podcast.
unsubtle. And it verges on parody, which I don't think counts.
It is probably literally
like,
parody.
If you said, like, for example, if we were doing like about films, and I said, okay, well, what's the best Star Wars film that isn't an actual Star Wars film? And somebody might go, well, what about Seven Samurai? Or what about something about fucking Nazis or whatever? Everyone knows that. I'm not going to get into it, but And then somebody says, "Oh, but what about Spaceballs?" It's like, well, no, that's no that fucking.
Part of the reason why Spaceballs is such a funny comedy is because it's a lot like
funny comedy. Is it
was
actually funny?
It was.
Them
coming through the desert is very funny.
It might be Mel Brooks' shittest project.
You might be Mel Brooks' shittest project.
I think Spaceballs is actually.
I'm glad I get to appreciate this witty, acerbic banter firsthand.
It's good.
My reason, I know I'm not in charge, hard as it may be to believe, but my reason that I wouldn't pick No More Heroes 3 is because it's not a very good game.
That's also, do you know what? That's true. If you had said that, Jim, I'd been like, okay, yeah, totally fine. Because it's
I've discounted it because it's a literal Star Wars parody.
It's the weakest of the three, and
all three
to
of them
be honest,
are kind
it's
of
not a great series. I wish I loved them. I really, really want to because they've got the right.
Isn't it?
Yeah, they've got the aesthetic,
style and like
the attitude.
The other thing as well, the reason why the first No More Heroes really got popular is because it was one of the few sorts of proper third-party games on the Wii, and it was open world, and it felt like a big game that you might play in a proper system.
And it used the motion controls in a really funny and interesting way.
Do you remember how you recharged your laser sword?
Yeah.
Do you want to show the people at home how you recharged?
I don't want to show them. But
yeah.
You just did a wanking motion.
It was good. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then went for a shit to save the game. This is the level we're working to here.
Yeah, exactly. And on all of these points, Connor, I think you've messed this one right up.
All right.
I'm going to eliminate Cosmic Wheel Sisterhood as well because I love your take, Mark. I really do, and I think you're, for the most part, I think you're spot on. There is a point about fate in the latest films, in the sequel trilogy. It's at odds with itself, isn't it? Because the J.J. Abrams side of that trilogy is obsessed with dynasty and fate and predestination and fucking nominative determinism, frankly.
And eugenics and inbreeding.
And then Rian Johnson comes in and does what I consider a fairly dogshit film, but it does make the point that, isn't it more interesting if this galaxy doesn't hinge on everyone being related to fucking Skywalker? Isn't it more interesting if anyone can change things without necessarily being part of some great destiny? Isn't it?
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be more realistic and better actually if Rey was just fucking someone who happened to be quite force sensitive?
It was better.
It was better
for that one film that was good, but we're not going to get into that argument here, Jim, because we're not the internet however many years ago. We're not all the Russian bots that were flooding misinformation on Twitter and stuff.
We've moved
Whatever.
on.
I'm not
part of the shitty culture wars that have destroyed the world, but.
But it seems to, and as we all know, that point was Rian Johnson tried to steer it in one direction, and then J.J. Abrams was like, but what if she's the Emperor's literal fucking granddaughter and she just calls herself Skywalker at the end to really hammer that home, and I sort of think that if it is about fate, then it's. No, absolutely, you're absolutely right. You probably should win, but what I'm saying is that the sequel trilogies have kind of thrown a spanner in the works for your argument, and I don't think it was ever intended to be about fate and destiny, etc. If anything, it was about upending destinies. That it's the idea, isn't it, that that someone brings balance to the Force, and it happens in a way that nobody expects. The prophecy is arguably fulfilled eventually by somebody who turns evil and completely unbalances the Force, but gives rise to their fucking son, who eventually just brings balance to the Force by fucking throwing the towel in on the whole thing. And the only way to win the game is to not play it. So it's not about fate at all. It's about unshackling yourself from destiny. So it's about the opposite of fate, right?
It's literally about
is that not what could have been
given
destined?
chosen ones. It's literally about a series, like a family of chosen ones.
Yeah.
Destined to take
two
each other
families of
out.
chosen ones, because the Palpatines come
You're
into
right. Two families of chosen ones.
most important people in the entire universe.
It's entirely
God
about
forbid
fate.
anybody else get involved.
The entire series from the first
Yeah, but
one
it's like
to
the
last
Julio
one,
Claudians and the
entirely about it.
Flavians, and like all these dynasties claimed like the divine right to rule, but they were just people who ended up in the right situation.
But
you know,
there's a difference between claiming the mandate of heaven or whatever, and having midichlorians in space literally choose your family to be super space samurai. Like, there's literally...
Yeah, but that could just be a normal genetic mutation that people have taken advantage of. There's nothing divinely ordained about the Palpatines.
Like I said, it's Star Wars is heavy on its eugenics.
It is, yeah.
I think what we're reaching here as a conclusion is that Star Wars is a lot of fucking shit.
It is fucking awful.
Yeah,
really.
it's
I
terrible.
absolutely adore it, but good God.
Yeah, none of it makes any sense. It's worse than Star Trek.
No, it's
Look,
all... It's mess.
I'm loath to do this, but I think Ian Dransfield has won.
Ian Dransfield.
And
This is what happens when I try.
Yeah. Because I think...
He's turning red and he's like genuinely tearing up. Congratulations, Ian.
Yeah.
Thank you, I deserve it.
And I get a lot of stick whenever the guest wins, because I was told for a long time, "Oh, you just pick the guest," and it's not true. I've gone through it very thoroughly there, I think.
I think you do, and I think it's feigned, because I'll let that happen because it was fated to be so. Just as a point. But the counter argument that I was going to present was basically that the most recent Star Wars films were actually so about fate that they were fated to be argued about by two very big directors who couldn't help but get their handbags out because they were desperate to drive the series in their direction. If that's not fate, what is?
But truthfully, Jim was fated to give Ian the win, so what's the point?
Yeah.
I am of one of these chosen families, so...
Yeah, people should... People should have just expected that, I guess. But Ian, the
I mean, if you want to re-record it and me just have one of my different picks, and as I say, I've got a long list. And I can make shit up on the fly.
Well, look, FTL is the best Star Wars game that isn't a Star Wars game. I think it's a very worthy winner, and I think your central point about it being, this is the blockade runner.
Technically speaking, looking at that, the blockade runner escaping, etc., is not a huge part of the films as an event, but the ramifications from it are the entire series.
It's pivotal.
Yeah, it's absolutely pivotal. And before and after, it's the Rogue One
it's
stuff
pivotal,
going into
and
it.
The Last Jedi kind of remixes the idea by having the entire film be the slowest fucking car chase in cinematic history.
Do we have to have this argument?
A car chase that's so fucking tedious that halfway through it, some of them piss off to a casino.
Yes, and they get involved in hijinks.
They do.
Which is a core part of the Star Wars film.
It's a load of penis, man. It's fucking
just
terrible.
Jim saying, "I want Jar Jar Binks back again." God's sake.
Right, okay. We're gonna leave that there. So
Bum guffs.
the Ian Hickton klaxon has gone off once again, signalling the end of this podcast. Now, Ian, we've each been to two of each other's weddings, haven't we? Does that mean we're besties?
I guess so.
Yeah. So, but if you want to be a bestie of this podcast, what you should do is go to vg247.com and click the support us page. It's in the hamburger menu if you're on mobile, and become a subscriber for $2.99 a month. And for that $2.99 a month, you get an extended version of this podcast, which has a bit at the end where I pick something, and everyone whose dreams I've just trashed get to take my pick apart and tell me why I'm actually a wanker. So I think that's worth £3 a month. And
do you also get an invite to our next weddings?
You also get ad-free access to the site, but guilt-free ad-free access without using an ad blocker, which is, as we all know, using an ad blocker to view the pages of our website in particular reduces our revenue and is therefore morally reprehensible. So I hope you agree that that's a very good way around it. So become a bestie if you want to listen to the next part of this podcast. if not, this is where we leave you, and this part of the show will always be free. Thank you so much for listening, and if you do enjoy the podcast, please leave a 5-star review on your podcast platform of choice. We hope you've enjoyed Ian as a guest, and this is where we leave you if you're not handing over the cash. And if you are a bestie, this is what you're paying for.
Right, let's hear it.